So we're joined from Houston, Texas for our final guest of the semester, my friend, technical support trainer for Tait Communications there in Houston, Texas. We thank you again for joining us again, Christa Johnson. We've got a room full here with me at Velma Jackson High School, and we're recording this for all of our friends in Madison County Schools, Ridgeland High School, Germantown High School, Madison Central High School, Rosa Scott, the Academic Option Center, and our YouTube channel. And all of our computer science engineering students in Madison County Schools as well, including my good friend Angela Jordan over at Shirley Simmons. So thank you again. Even though both of us voices are not 100% today, we thank you again for joining us. Now, I think this is the sixth time you have joined us.
I think so, and it is an honor. So, once again, good morning, everybody. Excuse my voice, like we just said, Houston's weather change has gotten a little bit to me, but it is definitely an honor and a pleasure to be here as always.
Yeah, and before we start, I always have to mention because it just blows my mind how small the world is. Because you went to the
Very
same high
much.
school, went to the same high school because you're from Chicago, went to the same high school in Chicago as our good friend Coach Martin, who was here for years. He's now he's moved on to a different school. You went to Jackson State for a short time, and we'll talk about that. And then your sister lives down the street from me, but yet you and me have never met in person. So that is just absolutely one of the most mind blowing things since I've been doing this. So it really shows how small the world really is.
Right. And what's crazy is every time I come, we miss each other literally by seconds.
Yeah,
But we're going to get there because I'm coming back very soon. And hopefully I'll be able to
absolutely.
come to Velma Jackson too and say hello, bring gifts, send gifts as I always do. So it's a pleasure. It's a pleasure. And we've been friends for how many years now? 4?
Yeah, we started doing this in 2020. So I started doing this in COVID. So yeah, it's really,
Yeah.
and that's just a blessing of COVID and a technological advance that we did not have when we were growing up.
hmm It was because if something like this were to happen back then, and oh my gosh, it's weird to say back then for us, but if something like this would happen, we wouldn't have had the resources to do what we needed to do or have the support that we have now. So I think it's a beautiful thing with technology and what you're doing, Greg, because it creates a sense of community, not only for the students, but for us and for us as a whole, from teachers, from our positions here in life and in our careers, because we're able to build a network as well from all aspects of life. So what you've done and what you started, you got to pat yourself on the back for it too, my friend.
Well, I appreciate that. So, like we said, you're from Chicago, and you did go to
Yes.
Jackson State, but you did not graduate from college. So,
No,
take us through your because you had kind of a different entry into the STEM field, and it just goes to show that even though college is for some people, it's not necessarily required to get into this field.
exactly. It's not nowadays, especially in this generation, it's easier to find different paths of life and success. So, for example, with me, like we said, I went to Chicago Vocational High School. So the vocational is a very, very special piece to that school because you had technological training. You also had any form of vocational training that you could ever imagine. I had friends who wanted to be hairstylists and fashion design engineers and chefs, and all of them were able to do that. We had beauty salons in the school, like live action beauty salons, where the students would go and get their hair done or haircut or manicure on Fridays. We had a full restaurant. So one of my friends, she's actually a caterer and a chef because she had that passion in high school, and the school invested in us to have a restaurant. So on special occasions when the school wanted to host like the ROTC program for dinners or alumni, they were able to show off their skills and their talent. Now, as for me, engineering was always in my heart. I always loved to break things, pull them apart, put them back together. Now, was I always in trouble for it? Yes, until I made it work. So you got to understand, my parents were very supportive, but they were concerned at some point in time. And I have to, give them that because they spent their hard-earned money on, electronics and things for us to have that life and that ability and that access to the world. So when I went to Chicago Vocational, which not only did, Coach Martin go and myself, but we have, NBA basketball players that are here that went to CVS. We have NFL football players. We have comedians. We have actors, actresses, everybody from all walks of life who have so many different talents to bring that came from that school. And a lot of people don't recognize that because it wasn't just about academics. It was about investing in that person and what they were able to bring out into the world. So when I took computer maintenance and assembly at the time, I was able to learn how to solder. I was able to learn how to properly work on machinery as far as electronics, computers, and so forth. And it gave me the tools to safely do what I needed to do. So once I did that, I actually graduated from CVS with certifications, and not only a high school diploma, but electronic certifications, computer certifications. Back then it was more so A plus and C plus plus and, all those other things. Cisco, I had a little bit of that by the time I was 17, 18 years old. So it was really cool to own those pieces. When I went to Jackson State, I did go for the computer science and computer engineering programs. Due to a personal situation, I actually had to make the decision to leave early. Now, it was discouraging because back then you go to college, you find a job, and you move forward. And we all are learning now that's not always the most realistic steps in life, you know? So, when I went away and I came back home to take care of my dad, it was a little discouraging, but then also I looked into other ways of bringing my talents out. So I went away, I finished school at University of Illinois, Chicago, got another degree at um, IIT. So I completed all of that together. Also, when I completed that, I finished off additional certifications. So, because that college piece was so important to my parents, I mainly did it for them. Got to be honest. Mainly did it for them. It wasn't for me anymore. So after that, while I was in college, I actually worked at Best Buy and I worked in the computer department. Started off just selling computers. And this will actually tell my age. I was one of the original geeks of Geek Squad. So, being one of the original geeks of Geek Squad, I had the Beetle, I had the little nerdy, geek uniform, and I was fixing computers. I was going on site runs with my techs and working with customers hands-on about their devices and their programs and things that were going on. After that, I made a decision. I was like, okay, well, I'm done. I'm ready to move forward. I was at Sprint, which is now T-Mobile, and I was a hands-on technician. So there were actually service centers in the stores instead of you going to a U-Break iFix or an Assurion or a third-party store to where I had all the tools in my hands to repair phones. I would break them apart, put them back together, determine the issue, and move forward there. Afterwards, I saw a different opportunity for myself, started to get more certifications, move forward. I looked into Verizon, started just at the bottom at customer service, but I always knew that my goal was to become an engineer. I had this degree, it was sitting there now, and I got the degree from my parents, but also that was money wasted in my eyes if I didn't put
Right.
that into use. So after some years working at Verizon with tech support and customer service, I was able to own my craft. But also, Verizon invested in me in gaining more certifications. So, aside from the degree part, the certifications were outweighing what I had in a degree. And that's what I want you guys to understand. When I got the engineer position, which was my dream goal, to come to Verizon and work in the network and work at places like NRG Stadium and Mercedes-Benz stadiums and create the network that makes everybody's phones work and that brings everybody connected. It was an honor, but also it was a very big challenge because I came at the beginning of COVID. So I was essential, but very, very detrimental to you because you guys, everybody had to connect again. We had to get you guys back in school. Everybody had to get back to work some way, somehow, but also be safe in the process. So after Verizon, I was an engineer for Logix for a year and a half, and then now I'm with Tait Communications, and it has been a mind-blowing year being with Tait. I have had so many different opportunities to make so many different connections. I don't know if I know we talked about it before, but Tait Communications is a New Zealand-based company, and Houston is the headquarters of the America system. So, with me being a part of the Americas essential part, I am now training people and training my clients and training my dealers on handheld radios, training them on the system program, connections, and how they communicate, not only within the school systems. So, like school bus drivers, even the teachers communicating within the schools, security, police officers, 911 dispatch operators, everyone in between, because we have to keep everyone communicated and connected in some way possible. So the biggest accomplishment this year, I was actually able to be picked to go to Vienna, Austria for 3 weeks to learn this new program that you guys have seen called LifeX. And LifeX is going to be mind-blowingly life-saving, and essential for everyone around. So that's the goal. And for me to be able to be the first of everything in this one is not only a privilege, but it's an honor to me because I get to give that gift of knowledge. Not only do I have a passion for technology, but I have a passion for knowledge and training. I want everybody to learn. Everybody should be able to have that same level playing field and keep going with certifications. So as you can see, it was not the same route that everybody goes through. And it takes a little longer sometimes, but your route is not everybody else's. You can't compare yourself to it. So I
Yeah,
had to learn that.
and I know I mentioned it a lot, but our students have the opportunity to get certifications in high school as well through we have our Academy
Absolutely.
of Digital Media here at Velma Jackson. And then all of our students in Madison County Schools, 10th and 11th grade, can go to our Career Center in their IT programs, the robotics and engineering programs. They can come out with certifications that companies like Tait, companies like Logix, companies like Verizon, they're looking for people that could do the job just as much as they're looking for people with degrees. So we have a lot of kids that are on the fence about college, or going to the community college, getting the certifications. There's a place for you in these STEM fields.
Exactly. And that's the one thing that I want you all to realize there's a way to invest in yourself to where you don't have to go to a 4-year university. Yes, the experience is awesome, depending on where you go. Go JSU, but neither here or there. But when it comes down to it, it's all about what you want and how you see yourself in the future. Because sitting in a classroom for hours at a time, listening to someone lecture, no interaction, drives me crazy. And I got to be honest with you. And that's another reason why I wanted to become a trainer because I'm more interactive. I've got to have something in my hands. Prime example, there's always something at my desk that keeps me going, that gets my mind functioning in order for me to produce. I have the freedom to work wherever, work for whomever. And then the coolest thing about this new position is the fact that I not just going to Vienna for 3 weeks and learning a whole new culture. I learned the German culture. I learned the European culture. Was able to see museums and things like that. But also, I was working hands-on with this company that believed in me enough to bring over their product that was so successful over in Europe to the United States and show others. And they believe in me so much. Not only am I creating the manuals for the US version myself, I have full ownership right to those, which means
Wow.
which means I it's all me. It's all authored by Christa Johnson, which is amazing because that was something I never saw. I
Yeah.
never saw coming. But also I get to create that manual. I get to copyright that manual. I get to, like I said, fully own it. So if there's anything that happens or I choose to leave or go anywhere else, or even if I choose to make that same manual for another dealer, contracts can be created to where that's residuals for me,
Wow.
full
That's incredible.
ownership. And it creates a legacy not only for myself, but the children I work with, my nieces and nephews, my godchildren, and my family. So giving that gift of knowledge is not just a financial gain. It's really like to me, it's an emotional attachment because in this field being the only everything in a lot of ways. I'm the only woman. I'm the only person of color in a lot of rooms. I don't know if you've seen that photo that I sent of my
Yeah.
team. It's
Yeah.
real.
Yeah.
It's real. Being the only, person in the LGBTQIA community in my entire department or company in some ways. Being, everything says Krista the first or Krista the only. It's it's great, but sometimes it's tolling. It takes a toll on you because you hold that pressure to yourself. But to be able to see the rewards that come from it is absolutely amazing. It's mind blowing. And also, the other company that we partnered with, which is for Quintus, offered me a role in becoming their subcontractor. So I'll be training next summer in the United Kingdom for their UK
Oh,
division. So, and my company Tait is on board with it.
wow.
So I get to take time out to work for another company that believes in me, and not only in the United States, but all over the world. And a lot of people don't get that opportunity. So when a lot of people don't get that opportunity, it brings a sense of pride, not only to myself, but my dad tells me every day, like, I'm proud of you. And I remember there was a time like he was upset because I left Jackson State because he got hurt on duty as an investigator, but he realizes now that there was a method to my madness. So you always got to remember it is the path that you create. And as long as the path gets you to where you want to go, it's going to be frustrating, but you know it's going to be worth it at the end.
That's awesome. Now, the one thing we talked about last time, and I did not know this until you mentioned it, is what are some of the trades and skilled workers that you've interacted with in these tech companies that these kids may not realize are in a high demand?
Oh, goodness. Installers. Installers are in high demand everywhere you go. It doesn't matter what you're installing at this point. As long as you know how to implement and put it to play, you can install a light bulb and everybody is looking for you nowadays. Um, just general machinery, mechanics. I come across um there's people that own little hand radio shops, truck drivers I work with. I work with so many different fields of life now because of Tate, because of Verizon, because of Logix, and just in high demand in general. You you can do anything as long as there's a form of communication, and I'm big on it. So those are just a few. welders. Everybody has to communicate some way, somehow. So it's anything hands-on and not hands-on. You may not even have to be in the site, but you got to be able to communicate. Not just through Zoom, not just through Teams or email. You have to be able to verbally communicate. And that's where the radios come in this time.
Yeah, and I'm glad you mentioned machinist because that's a new type of certification that's come up in the last few years because all these manufacturers are going more and more automated.
Hmm.
There's still some things done by hand, but when you guys are making your radios, you've got to have people to operate those machines and to give maintenance to those machines. So
Exactly.
somebody that's a certified machinist, and then you mentioned last time or a couple times ago about the need for HVAC people for server.
Yes.
I had never thought about that. So these large software companies are employing HVAC techs, paying them a lot of money to keep their servers cool.
Yes. Not only to keep them cool, but clean. So you got to remember. So say for instance, you go to your computer or tablet or even your phone. If you look at the bottom of it, there's a lot of dust, there's a lot of dirt, there's a lot of things that creep in there a lot, all the time. And if you don't clean it properly, it's not going to work properly. And if it doesn't work properly, sometimes it can cause more damage than it does help. So that HVAC comes into play every time because they've got to clean that dust that builds up. They've got to keep everything cool because if that fan is clogged up, it cannot do anything for you, which means your systems are overheating, which means your systems are going to shut down, which means everybody loses. And then it's $1 million problem versus a $200 problem. And that affects everybody's bottom line.
Oh, big time. And I just think, and obviously, and I know you play Jackson State. They have their new engineering program. They have the new electrical engineering program here at Mississippi College. Ole Miss, Mississippi State all have great engineering
Yes.
programs. So definitely not discouraging people that want to get the engineering degree, but it's not necessarily something that's required. The
Yeah.
military now, I know I'm sure you deal with a lot of prior military, especially Air Force, Space Force dealing with their tech
Hmm.
experience, dealing with state of the art technology translates into,
Yes.
especially with communications. If you want to get into communications, the Air Force is an unbelievable springboard to get into that field, and you don't pay a
Yeah.
dime. And well,
Exactly. So I'm glad you did say something about Jackson State because my nephew Cortez is a junior at Jackson State in the engineering program. So he wanted to go that route. And he tells me all the time, it's not easy, but it was his way. And he wanted the full experience the way he did. He's succeeding. He's on the dean's list. He's multitasking. He is very talented in what he does. I may send him up to Velma Jackson just for volunteering purposes because he loves it there. But he came from Chicago looking for something different. And when he knew his aunt went to Jackson State, he knew that's where he wanted to go. And I couldn't deny him that gift, okay?
that's awesome.
But like you said, being here in Houston, like one of the best points about being here in Texas, and this is probably my next goal, is to work for the Space Force. And we have NASA here. So every chance I get, I go to NASA. I get in contact with engineers there. I communicate with them. I work with um, just the general contractors that have contracts there at Johnson Space Center. It's awesome. And so when you start building those relationships and those bonds, it's a lifelong connection because everybody has a common goal is to keep communication going in the world. And it's a beautiful thing.
And it's only gonna get more in demand. Well, I
Hmm.
do have some questions from the students, and these are really good. So I'll get as many of these as I can. This person is Renaya Matthews. She's in ninth grade, and she asked, "What has been the toughest challenge during this Life X process?"
Oh, the language barrier. The absolute, absolutely the language barrier. Um, being in Vienna for 3 weeks, like I said, it sparked that training bug in me more because you want to be able to communicate together, but the language barrier definitely takes a toll. Um, and then converting a lot of the programs into US versions because the US versus Euro has different qualifications, different guidelines. I mean, even something as simple as an electrical outlet plug, totally different. So if that's something that's different, everything is different over there. And to bring it here, it has to be converted for American use. North, South, Central, all of it. It has to be converted for our use safely. And it has to go through the guidelines. So here, on top of that, the original manual for Quintus that they just sent me is 462 pages. That's their version.
Wow.
So I've read over 462 pages of this on top of, I'll show you, books. So look as big as the Bible. Okay. So I have had at least four of these um, folders sent to me since I've been back from Austria in July, and I've had to learn this back and forth. So it's a lot of storage, it's a lot of breaking down the communication. And another one more thing is the time change. So this morning I had a 4:30 in the morning meeting here in Houston, but it was 11:30 in the afternoon there, or in the morning there. So they're all bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, and I'm looking like I just rolled over. But I'm dressed, of course. But the time change is a challenge sometimes too. And it got to a point to where I requested to go back just so we can all be on the same time frame. And if I need to communicate to my American partners, I'm able to do that a lot easier. So you never know. I may be doing one of these from Austria next month. So.
Oh, that'd be so cool. Uh, all right. This is Cameron Sutton. He's in 10th grade, and he asked, "Did you ever think about giving up whenever your father had his accident?"
Absolutely. Absolutely. I was, and it was heartbreaking for me because my dad is my everything. And by the grace of God, Mr. Johnson is still alive at 76 years old, kicking, screaming, walking around and everything because we didn't know if he was going to ever walk again. And so it's a blessing for him to see me in this light. And yes, not only because of him being injured in that accident, it was also because I felt like I hit a roadblock. So I felt like I was destined to fail. And I had a long talk with my parents, myself, God, and just kind of had to reestablish that confidence within myself, saying, I can do this. And my dad tells me every day, because if I don't talk to him once a day, it's a problem already. But he tells me every day he's very proud of me. And I'm at 42 years old, it still means the world. So yeah, it's awesome.
It is awesome. This is Rakia Jackson. She's in 10th grade, one of our cheerleaders. And she asked,
Mhm.
"When did you realize you really like taking things apart?"
Oh, about 4 years old, I think. I think that's what my mom said. I was about four. My dad sat me in front of a computer at 2. So I had the original Apple computers at the time. And my dad sat me in front of it, so I loved playing on it. But taking things apart, my mom said I started getting in trouble about 4 years old. So it just it just grew in from there. I've always had a passion for it. No matter what I saw, if I was able to take it apart, I was gonna put it back together.
Well, I got time for two more. This is Kenneth Luckett.
Okay.
He's in 9th grade. And he asked, "Do you think if someone doesn't go to college, it has a negative effect on their ability to move up in a career?"
It depends on the person, honestly. Um, and it depends on how you put the perspective. Me, it did at first, and then it didn't. And the reason why it converted that way is because I learned that my destiny is mine. It's mine to own. And not only is it mine to have ownership of, it is the path that I choose to take. So because it's the path that I choose to take, it can get discouraging at times. It can make you question your own abilities. But also at the end of the day, you know your reward. You know the reward you want. You know the goals you want to achieve. Now it's time to figure out steps to achieve it. Build that bond with people that you know are in this build the business that you want to. Reach out to them. You never know who's ever going to respond. You never ever know. And it feels good when you have people like that that actually reaches out and says, "Oh my goodness, like you are truly amazing." I had, besides, your famous teacher here, um, I had Amanda Seals reach out to me one day because she saw just the engineering piece that I do, and she's all for, just empowering people. And when she said it, she reached out to me. She said, I've seen what you said or what you've posted on social media about being, an engineer or a Black woman in engineering and things like. She said, I just want to tell you I'm proud of you, but you never know who's going to reach out to you in those situations ever. And to be seen by others is one thing, but to be proud of yourself is another.
I got time for one more. This is Shirai
One
Luckett.
more.
He's in 10th grade, and he asked, "Have you ever been scared being a triple minority in a field that does not have a lot of people that fit into that category?"
All the time. All the time. There's because you never know what what can happen or what people think, especially unfortunately in a climate that has changed in such a negative way in a lot of ways where, I don't want to get political, but the political climate here in America is really scary for a lot of people. Um, it's shown a lot of people's true colors about how they feel about others or how they feel about just their fellow human being. There was a time, honestly, especially when I first moved here to Texas, my parents were terrified because of my minority status. And it's scary, but also I was always raised by parents who grew up in civil rights, who went through a lot of that hatred and disorientation and things like that. My mother became a police officer to not to fight injustice, but to show the humanity in people. My dad was a private investigator and he showed the humanity in that. So that's all I know is humanity and respect and common courtesy to others. So no matter what another person may feel about me, of their personal views, they can never say I joined them in that as far as my attitude, my demeanor, the way I come across to people. As we say now, very mindful, very demure. So, and then the knowledge tops everything. So no matter what they think or they don't think, you carry yourself and you represent yourself on how you are, no matter what people see you as. When I was in Vienna, I was the only again, but not just the only in a classroom or the only in an office. I was almost the only in a city and country. And what was scary was I didn't know what was going to happen because I was there by myself. I didn't have my wife with me. I didn't have my parents. I didn't even bring my sisters. I didn't bring anybody. It was just me and my coworkers. And there was a lot of political climate conflict because we were Americans. And a lot of that stuff started to come up, and a lot of those conversations came up in the workspace. So, my recommendation to you, even on that, is to steer clear and not say keep your mouth shut, but keep your personal opinions to yourself because unfortunately, ignorance is not always bliss with a lot of people. They take action on it. And action as far as your career status, your point of view, their point of view of you, their influence to others of you. So as long as you lead with professionalism and integrity, no one can ever say what you've done or anything else. But the cool thing
Absolutely.
about me being in Austria was the fact that that entire country, there was so many people that loved me and respected me and treated me with kindness. It was just general and genuine. Like I didn't want to leave just because of how I felt, but it's like it's a beautiful thing, and I've created so many friendships and so many positive, you know, impacts within myself and each other. Like I still talk to my trainer every day, and it was funny because every day that I was there, because his mother's name is Christa, spelled the same way, and he's German, and he said I tell my mom about you all the time. And he taught me a little bit of German here and there. I'm not good at it, so please don't ask me. But he taught me a little bit of German. But every day we took a selfie,
That's awesome.
and it was just like it's just the camaraderie and the respect and the genuine kindness in relationships that you build with people. That's how you get forward. Is it terrifying? Absolutely. Not without a doubt. It is terrifying sometimes. But as long as you know your spirit and the peace that you carry of integrity, you can never go wrong in what you do.
Love it. Well, we're almost out of time, and as always, we thank you so much for taking time for us. But before we go, a couple things. Tate Communications has some really cool things on their website. I think they need to check it out. I learned some things about communication on there. So the Tate Communication website, all over their social media, shows some of the things you're working on, like LifeX.
Yes, yes. They show life hacks. They show all of our products as far as radios, communications. There's one more article that I'll send you guys about a client who their their um, their vehicle blew up, literally, and Tait, that one radio base station not only saved their lives, but stayed intact. So when it
Wow,
got to us, yeah, when it got to us here in America to see what we could salvage and things like that, it was almost like the black box for an airplane.
wow,
So when it got to us, it was intact. The only thing that was done, it had a little melting spot, but and soot, but it worked like a charm. We plugged it in and it worked. It picked
that's
up
crazy.
everything that happened. And it's crazy and it's amazing at the same time. So I do plan on going to headquarters in New Zealand and back to
Oh, I'm so
Austria.
jealous.
So I'll be sending more gifts and I'll be sending more ducks and I'll be sending more Tate stuff so everybody can enjoy it and just say, you're a part of it. And my goal within the next, and I'm just telling you because I'm speaking it into existence because I believe in my Madison County students. Okay. My goal within the next 5 years of being with Tate, because I don't plan on leaving, is to train and create a full-blown internship for students and work with them on getting certifications. It doesn't mean that you got to stay at Tate forever because we all know everybody's paths are different, but to invest and to create and to build and to just give that stepping stone because a lot of times people people look at it as okay, you've got the paperwork, but you don't have the experience. But in my eyes, I want to give you both.
Yep,
So be on the lookout. You guys will be the first to know when I do.
that's awesome.
And I want to
Now,
make sure I invest in you guys.
the last thing before we go, why should these
Yes,
kids really consider getting into these STEM careers?
it's fun. It's interactive. It's it's just it's so many moving parts. you're never going to be in one lane. You're never going to be doing just one specific thing. I've done so much in my career in STEM alone. Everybody thought that I was just going to be working on computers for the rest of my life. I've transitioned that into cellular technology. I've transitioned that into full network technology. I've gone to the Super Bowl twice just to make sure people were connected. Just so many different aspects in life. You meet so many different people. You never know who you're going to run into ever just by doing that. Like, yes, I'm in Houston, but I'm forever a Bears fan. Okay. But I met Andre Johnson, and now he comes to me for any type of communications. And also now I get to go to Texans games for free just because I've helped him. And now I help them keep communications going with radios and built a connection with them to use tape radios and things like that. So I say it is absolutely awesome. And you build so many different relationships. You never know who you're going to run into. You never know.
I love it. Well, again, thanks so much for fitting this in your schedule. It's always such a pleasure. And I know I'll talk to you before then, but have a Merry
Absolutely.
Christmas, and a Happy New Year. And Christa Johnson, Tait Communications, Houston, Texas. We thank you so much for joining us for our final guest of the semester.
It is my pleasure. It is my pleasure. And have a great holiday break, everybody.
All right, talk to you soon, buddy.
I'll talk to you soon. Thank you.
See ya.
Love